Hi guys, this video is about Civil 3D. So I'm going to just go ahead and start the Civil 3D program, and this is what you're going to see. I'm going to start a drawing. I'm not going to do anything with my templates yet, so I want to explain a few things. When you first start Civil 3D, your heading up here should say Civil 3D. If it doesn't, then you come down to the workspace setting and you set it to Civil 3D. The nice thing about using the Civil 3D program that it has various workspace settings. For example, you have just the regular AutoCAD setting like I just used. You have the 3D modeling platform that you use in Advanced CAD, and then you have the planning and analysis tool, which is more like your ArcGIS information. But we're just going to use the regular Civil 3D. Now, the first thing that you have up here that you need to look at is there's a couple things. Well, you know me, I always keep my properties box open, so I'm going to shut that for right now. When you open it up, typically you're going to start on the Home tab and you're going to have a Toolspace. Now, also in this area of the ribbon, you have palettes of information. The ones that we're going to be using in this class, and most of the time when we're working with Civil 3D, is our Toolspace, our Survey, our toolbox, and the palettes that we might use for designing roadways or corridors in the highway class. Now, when you open up Toolspace, you should have Prospector, Settings, Survey, and Toolbox in each of these tabs. So Prospector looks like this, then Settings, Survey, and Toolbox. Now, if you don't have one of them, for example, if you only have Prospector and Settings, what you can do to turn those back on is to click these icons. So we're going to be using Survey in this class, and I'll show you some toolbox information. But what I want to start with is the Prospector. The Prospector, what it does is up here in the active view drawing is I have only one drawing open right now. It's just the generic drawing that it defaults to when you open up a new drawing. But in here, you have the Prospector. I always say the Prospector does the work. This is where you design or you're working on data to create a design. So when we're working in the survey classes, we're going to be using points. We're going to create point groups. Point clouds are actually when you're using like a 3D laser scanner, and it's got a million points possibly. The surface itself is what you're going to be creating for a topographic survey. It's what the ground's going to look like. It's your contours. Alignments can be various things. The alignment typically is going to be your center line of your road. It could be the center line of a ditch or something that you want to design a profile of. Sites has to do with what your layout looks like. So if you have one project that's 1,000 acres, you could break it down into 100-acre parcels or something like that. Catchments has to do with the hydrology and hydraulics. So we want to know where the water goes, so we're going to need to know where the catchment basins are. It's just the drainage basin. Pipe networks has to do with two things. Regular pipe networks have to do with storm, gravity storm and gravity sewer. Whereas pressure networks has to do with pressure pipes such as your force mains for your sewer or your force mains for your water. Corridors have to do with any type of corridor or route that you're designing that you need. Basically what it's going to look like might be a road. But a corridor can also be a transmission line or a utility layout line. Assemblies have to do with what the ground looks like. Now, assemblies don't have to mean only a roadway. They could actually, you could design an assembly for just a bike path or something that is connected to a corridor. Now, intersections have to do with any type of intersections, maybe even a roadway that gets attached to assembly and goes to a corridor. So the nice thing about Civil 3D is it tries to put it in a way that you're going to be using the information in a sequence. Now, survey has information that has networks figures. Networks has to do with if you're working on a project, let's say it's a traverse project, you can have a network of the traverse information. Figures has to do with when you have a lot of points and you bring them in, if you have them written in such a way, they will actually create the line work of a finished product site plan. Now, that is the Prospector. It is where most of your work gets done when designing. If you're working in survey, the survey also has a work palette, and it works with databases and data collectors of information that you're bringing in from the field. Okay, now the settings tab has to do with what everything looks like in the end. If I want a point to look a specific way, there's going to be a style to that point, and then there's going to be a label. So the style could look like, the point style can look like a benchmark, and it could look like a triangle with a dot in the center of it, referring to control. The label style, so there's all your different types of point styles. Now the label style has to do with what information the point is going to display. Is it just going to describe the point? Is it going to have elevation and a description, elevation only, northing and eastings, or maybe it has everything in it? You can create all these styles within settings. The other thing that it has, each one of these pieces of information can be adjusted based on its style of what the object looks like. So there's an object style, and then there is a label style. So there's always making what it looks like. Now these styles are basically set up based on your drawing scale. So down here I have different size of drawing scales. I can have a 1-to-1. When we're doing survey projects or civil engineering projects, they're always going to be 1 inch equals 20 feet, 30 feet, 40 feet, 50 feet, etc. I typically leave mine at 1 to 50, but sometimes I end up having to design at 1 inch equals 100 feet. Okay, now for the survey, we also have information that has to have the data. So one of the projects that we'll be working on in this class is importing information into the database. Now, for the guys that had, some of y'all have had classes in different sequences. So if you've had the highway drafting route design class, you should be familiar with points and even inserting points from a file. Now in this class, I'm going to show you how to insert points based on a database. So that's just your beginning of what information that you need to have available when you're working. So that's just give like a little tip of what your tool space is. Now, here's another thing that's important when you're working in the survey portion. Underneath settings, for example, our drawing 2 has a edit drawing settings. Those settings have to do with, if you look at the units, have to do with feet and meters. We want feet and we want US survey feet. Now, our degrees, our angular units are going to be in degrees. Now, for the guys that have had or looking into working with GIS, we've talked about datums. We've also talked about datums in basic survey. So in here, we're looking at datums that have to do with, I'm going to scroll down and see if I can find the United States. So I'm looking at United States, Florida. Now, underneath the coordinate systems, I can pull down and I can find the NAD 27 Harn. And we're going to do the East Zone because we're always working in, like on the Valencia projects. Well, you can go ahead and set up this information before you start. The other things about your drawings that we'll be working with in this class is even the object layers that we're creating. Object layers that we're creating. This is where all of our naming sequence gets done that defaults into our Civil 3D projects. So you wonder where does all the layering name come from? It comes from this object layers. Abbreviations has to do with when we're working on a project, what do we want it to look like? Or for the guys that had highway class, we had PI for point of intersection, PC for point of curve. So those are some of the information that we'll be looking at as we work on our drawings in this class. So I just wanted to make sure you knew about the drawing settings. So I'm going to click OK. Now to get to the drawing settings, just as a reminder, so it has to be in settings, right-click the name of the drawing and edit drawing settings. That's where you can set everything up to begin with. Okay, now right now the default when it opens, I want to show you the layer properties. So I went to the Home tab and I'm going to the layer properties. In the layer properties, it automatically defaults to all these layers that are in there. Do we use them all? No. Now, if you're working for a company, you go to a company and you start a new file. I'm going to show you how to bring in templates. When we're working in this class, most of the time I'm going to tell you to start with a template that is specific to this class. So I'm going to go File, New. When that happens, notice that it automatically defaults to your C drive to find a template. These two here, the AutoCAD Civil 3D Imperial, is the default file, and that's why we've got so many layers. And most of the time we just leave it like that. But if we're working in this class, I'll want to go and path out. I'm actually putting everything on my desktop right now. Here is the template that we used in highway class, and we'll be using a specific template for this class, and it may say advanced survey, or if it was a basic survey, it'll say basic. But I'm going to go ahead and open this one because it's easily accessible for me right now. So I'm going to go ahead and open it. What happens when it opens up is I already started this file because it's in an area that I know where data is going to be imported at. So, but I wanted to show you in this file, these are still the layer names that have been set for it. But what is different in this file is I've created specific label styles of what I want it to look like. So I created for this one a PNEZD, meaning it's going to tell me what the point number is, the northing, the easting, the Z elevation, and a description. So I'll start teaching you how to do description keys and creating your own styles in this class also. All right, that's it for now. I just wanted to explain the Toolspace, what Prospector does, the settings, what Survey does, and the toolbox. Oh, just FYI, the reason that this is popping up is because I had created a database before, and it's out of sequence, so it's not been updated. That's why you get these little yellow tags, just as an FYI. All right, that's it for now.